Today's reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This week's reading, Abiding in God. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda often emphasized, more often to his disciples than to the general public, but also to everyone generally, for it was a universal teaching, the importance of attunement. For divine understanding cannot be created, it must be perceived. To the disciples, Yogananda spoke of the importance of attunement with the Guru. To others, he urged the importance of at least attuning oneself to higher consciousness. Can an eagle rise without support from the sustaining air? Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so ye shall be my disciples. How can we abide in him? Jesus says, if my words abide in you. By words he meant not only his spoken words, but his vibrations, his consciousness, of which the words are only an expression. We must abide by the teachings, but we must also absorb those teachings into ourselves, that they become our own experience. For disciples of this path, the more in our hearts they live consciously in the presence of the Masters, the more they will find the divine presence living within them. And for all truth seekers, whether disciples or not, the more they live sustained inwardly by the awareness of God's presence, the higher they will find themselves soaring in wisdom and joy. For the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, I am the source of everything. From me all creation emerges. Blessed with this realization, the wise, awe-stricken, adore me. Thus through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone. We had a lovely day at Ananda Community yesterday in the warm sunshine with our picnic and relaxing together. This particular reading, I am the vine, ye are the branches, reminds me of a photo I saw somewhere, probably Facebook, source of all things. And it's a picture of a dog trotting down a road, a big branch in his mouth, coming back to his human. And then the caption said, branch manager. Reminds me, yesterday at our picnic, Jamuna handed me a card, probably with a hidden message, but I'll let you figure that out. And that card said, if you want to be hailed by thousands, be a cab driver. Well, as many of you know, Padma and I and Bhima and Bhakti returned just a few days ago from a week in Michigan, serving and giving programs and meeting new friends, Ananda members, and people who came to our programs. And in my little article, I write a blog, and the other day I wrote, it just seems like intensity is in the air for everybody. Meeting with people there, talking to some of you here, in my own life. Okay, it's summertime, and summer is the season of intensity and outward activity. But somebody even said, I'm playing golf and doing the things I like, but everything put together is just a little too much. And that kind of intensity, I don't know, I don't want to speak about world things exactly. It isn't my interest today, but more personal things. But I get the sense from many people that somehow it's a little different right now. And I call it the unpredictability factor. It feels like anything can happen, whether personally or otherwise right now. A few months ago, less than 2 months ago, a great many of you we traveled together to Ananda village for the dedication of a small little chapel called a mandir. In India, that would be the term used. A little chapel under which is buried the remains, the body of our founder, Swami Kriyananda. Now, he died in 2013, so there was sort of a 2-year period of grace, you might say, of quietness, and everything sort of staying the same. Long ago, we've been here 22 years, long ago, he sent out into different centers and so forth, and now we're all around the world, different leaders that he had trained to do these things. So occasionally people would ask, well, what happens now that he's gone? Well, nothing different. He withdrew from that sort of activity long ago. And so things were sort of quiet and stayed the same. Many people, hundreds of people, probably more, but I only know so many, commented, including myself, that after his passing, we felt sort of more than ever his presence. And it's a phenomenon that I bet a number of you can attest to in your own lives. I think of when my mother passed and so forth, but somehow when somebody leaves the physical body, confined like water and corked in a bottle, when we leave the physical body, it's as if our spirit now can expand and is more free. And so many people, some people who never knew Swami Kriyananda, some of us who had known him all of our adult lives, didn't really matter. It wasn't a personal thing. But anyone who had the kind of attunement, you might say, that we're speaking of today, many people felt maybe they could sort of hear the silent signature of his voice or whatever. It's described different ways in many forms through this period. But after the dedication, after his body was officially interred, and on the way back, as I've told many of my friends, I felt something else had shifted for us. When my mother passed, of course you're sad your mother passes on, but, it was a time in life for her to do that, and that's fine. She had led a good life and had a passing that was appropriate and peaceful and so on. But still, you feel different. And I won't say that I felt I grew up, because that hasn't happened yet. But but something felt, the generation was gone. Okay? That's all I can really put into words. And when we buried Swami Kriyananda, as it were, interred him in his final resting place a few months ago, and coming back, I felt that kind of a shift. People like ourselves and members around the world, we're the next generation relative to his life. And there are some people who met him in the last few years of his life, and they will be the last to carry on his living memory. I never knew, I don't think there's anybody in this room who actually met Paramahansa Yogananda, who really is our preceptor, our guru, our spiritual teacher, the last of his line, he said. But it has to be carried on through disciples. And that attunement is something we carry on one to the other. And so what I felt was, he's gone. and we had this 2-year grace period, but somehow onto the shoulders, if you will, the work must go on. And in fact, it was our own daughter, Gita, who lives at Ananda Village, where she was born and raised, in the first community of Ananda, founded in 1967-8, sometime long ago. She's there on staff and sort of in the center of things, and she proposed the idea to a meeting of leaders from around the world. She said, it's time for us to go out. He's gone. Who's going to carry on? Because Kriyananda spent his whole life traveling, staying here for a while, there for a while, and doing lecturing, writing books, counseling, and so forth. So who will carry this on? And so our trip to Michigan was very much a conscious, intentional part of different ones of us being sent out outside both our comfort zone, if you will, and our service area here in Seattle, Washington, to share with other people more publicly. Swami Kriyananda, as people do on the spiritual path, living a life of faith, you learn to accept life's challenges with equanimity, with faith, and as you progress spiritually, even a little bit of gratitude for the trials and tribulations one receives. Think of a very famous Sufi woman saint in the Middle Ages who, on her deathbed, racked with pain, her disciples came to her and said to her, Rabia, surely one suffers willingly for the sake of the love of God. And she said, this smacks of egotism. She said, that's not enough. And they had a conversation like this on and on, different ones. And finally, somebody said to her, Rabia, meaning rabbi, tell us then, what is the right attitude? And she said, he who amidst his trials, suffering, whatever, challenges in life, thinks only of the beloved, basks in the love and the joy of the divine presence within, she is then worthy of her trials. That's a tall order. I think we would all agree that probably most of us here aren't quite there yet. But it's that level of attunement that transcends. It's that transcendent power and transcendent grace of attunement to the divine living presence in ourselves and in every atom of creation. It's this, and so before I forget my point, it's this taking on, if you will, the willingness to live a life of faith, of service, divine service, as according to each person's karma and situation. Many of us here in the different communities, there are 9 communities around the world and many centers and groups. There are a handful of us, a few hundred, I suppose, who have made this our life's work. And we have formed for that purpose an expression of that, the Sevaka order, we call it. Seva means service. And so we're willing to be asked to go here and there. And members have been sent to Italy long ago in the 80s. And then in 2003, Kriyananda took up more or less permanent residence in India and brought with him a number of others. And now they're all scattered throughout cities of India where the work is thriving. Taking on that, shouldering that service can be part of the path of attunement. It doesn't matter what you do. The outward service is plenty of monks and nuns who think nothing but of themselves and can be indeed quite selfish in their narrowness of their lives and so forth. And in fact, pride is the burden of such people. Pride of looking over other people who have not made the, quote, sacrifices they've had. But a true devotee in whatever walk of life shoulders the trials inevitable in life with that kind of equanimity, thinking of other people first and how can I serve. This is the path of attunement. And in that transfer, generational transfer, I've seen, I think, I know I'm not alone, so I'll say we have seen, even in this period, even since 2 months ago, a kind of intensity challenging our willingness to put self aside and to serve. I won't go through the long list of activities that this Sangha here, even just in Seattle, has hosted in these few months, but I think most of you know what those are in terms of events and challenges and the needs of some of our members, medically and otherwise. This is the life of faith, and we've been called in that direction. And so we want to talk today a little bit about, we've been given that opportunity. And it is a great opportunity, and I'm a little bit north of 60 years old now, and I guess I wasn't ready before. Maybe, I don't know what I was ready for, but I've been around a long time. I've survived this far, so I guess that's worth something. But somehow, despite a life of active service all my life, what is happening now is somehow different. I can only speak personally, but I hear it from others. And as Paramahansa Yogananda said to Swami Kriyananda about his life, he said, yours is, you have a great work to do, he said. Yours is a life of intense activity. And then he paused and said, and meditation. Isn't it interesting that sacrificing even your sadhana, your meditation time, in the name of service can sometimes be asked of a devotee? Now that can be twisted into self-justification, so be careful. But I have seen that in the lives of others. And for those who's called to service, Yogananda once said to a devotee, I'll meditate for you, because your life is that of a karma yogi. Nonetheless, we seek the balanced life. And so our trip to Michigan was very much in that spirit. And the interesting thing is when we give of ourselves willingly, happily, it's a joyful experience, as we say in the Festival of Light here every Sunday. And whereas in the past the coin of man's redemption was suffering or something or other, for us now the payment has been exchanged for calm acceptance and joy. And I think we had much more than that on our trip, much more than calm acceptance and joy. We had a good time, didn't we? And I'd never been, I've been all over the world, but I don't know nothing about our country. Sorry about that, 4th of July, but I've really never been anywhere. And so I'd never been to Michigan either. And it was quite a beautiful place. We were very impressed. People said, oh, it'll be hot and sticky there. And it was beautiful. It was a lot nicer than here. Everything was so, in fact, I said to the others, I said, is this Disneyland or something? Everybody has a green lawn and it's perfectly mowed, and even the old houses are perfectly maintained. Everywhere we went, is this like a joke? Did they know we were coming? And then we'd peek our heads out the door during the day. So, who's mowing all these lawns? There's thousands of acres of lawns back there. And first thing we got off the plane, everybody we talked to said, don't worry, Detroit's doing better. I didn't say anything. In fact, I read an article in National Geographic, Detroit's coming up. So the joke to my friends here, I said, don't say this when we get there, but I've been telling everybody we're going to Detroit. We hear there's some real good farmland for sale. It's cheap. And,
downtown.
Yeah. Downtown, right. But I didn't say that to anybody there. And the first thing they said, we're doing better. I said, great. I never saw Detroit. We were in other cities. Anyway, it was wonderful. We met a lot of new friends. And, every area has its vibration. Seattle, well, I'm not going to talk about Seattle. But Michigan's the Motor City. And there you have engineers, scientists. You have can-do kind of people, right? And there were 3 or 4 of the men coming up into positions there. These guys are CEOs. They've been around the world. I could go on and on. These guys were like, and learning to teach classes in meditation. It's just delightful and humble, just high energy people. We were very impressed. Mm-hmm. But you've heard us talk about the forest fire at Ananda Village in the early years. I said to the group there, you've had a forest fire too. Because just a year or 2 ago, they lost the founder of the Ananda work there, a wonderful, wonderful man, Lorne Deacon Padmanai, and some of you here knew him. We worked with him at Ananda Village many, many years ago. So interesting in terms of attunement. If you'd have asked Padma and I if Lauren Dinkin would go to Michigan someday and start a work and have people really consider him to be saintly, we'd have looked at each other and said, huh, Lauren? Thus is the path of faith. Because this is one thing Kriyananda taught us. He had us do different things, and he would change positions, people doing different jobs and so forth, and you'd get outside your comfort zone. This is the life of the devotee. What is thy will? Thy will be done. The life of the ordinary person is, do I have to? This was part of our seminars, one of our superconscious living seminars called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life. And the next person says, well, what's in it for me, Charlotte? And but the next person says, how can I help? And then finally, thy will be done. And as we grow in spirit and in truth, our energy expands. The joy level we experience despite our self-giving, in fact, because of our self-giving, only grows. The ego fights this every step of the way. It says, no can do, no possible. But it is possible in spirit. And so their forest fire was the loss of their beloved leader, Lauren Deacon. And so they're still kind of grieving over that. And I said, this is your forest fire, and you've got to get up and stand up. And to those new leaders coming up, you know, I've already sent them tons of files and things that I have to share from here. And go for it. You can do it. Of course you can do it, because you're not the doer. God is the doer. Once we kind of get a taste of that, we realize nothing can stop us in that expansion of kind. This is attunement. And so I'd like Padma and then Bhima and Bhakti to share a little bit about your trip. I don't know how you want to do that, but I better sit down.
You two want to come up too so that we can just move right along. I'll just say briefly, I can't help myself. Michigan is Motor City. Detroit is Motor City. And everybody who took us around those 6 days had these giant cars. You know, these huge things. I've never seen them that big before. I was like a little kid climbing into these big things. You know, it would take me like 10 minutes just to get into the darn things. It was wild. But it was lovely seeing everyone there. Suman and Manish, who were part of this Sangha with their children, Vivek and Shreya, live in Ann Arbor, and we were there for the last segment of the trip and stayed with them, and she came to Sunday service in the other town as well. Everything was about an hour apart. We spoke. We did 10 different programs in 6 days, and in 3 towns, Ferndale, East Lansing, and Ann Arbor. But in any case, without all the details, it was just lovely being there with the devotees who were there and the new people who came and then followed us around everywhere we went and came to all the programs. It was delightful. And I think one of the highlights for me was working with these 2 great souls. And the 4 of us just had a ball together. I was going to say a gas together, and we really did. Of course, we're the next generation to Kriyananda. They're the next generation after that. But we integrated so well and gave people tastes, many different filters, different aspects, and of course the music that they did was they're the next Om Prakash and Prem Shanti here. They just did beautifully with that as well, and did some of the programs with us and aspects of it. So come on up.
So there's a lot to share. We were there for 7 days, all over southern Michigan, and like Padma said, you got big cars, you got perfect lawns. It was definitely an all-American kind of a vibration. But other than just talking about the weather, we landed in Detroit, and we spent most of our time in Warren at a Unity church doing 2 of our programs, which we later repeated in other cities as well. And one of the highlights for me was going to the East Lansing Center, and we did a weekend there. We had 3 programs on Saturday and a couple on Sunday. And on Saturday, we got to do a communities forum with the folks there, just talking about the ins and outs of living in community. And Bhakti and I shared some of our experiences being in community here for almost 3 years, and also just how to keep group magnetism going and how to keep inspired and things like that. And another joy was coming to Ann Arbor and staying with the Tawaris who used to live here, and they've got a couple real fun kids who are just very precocious and running around, and so everywhere we went there was great hospitality and lots of inspiration.
I think the greatest highlight for me was just seeing I was so inspired by the souls there. They were so dedicated and devoted and energetic, and their energy helped to fuel me, because at first, the thought was like, wow, this is a lot, and there's a lot of programs and a lot of things to go through in these days, and I tend to get a little nervous when I'm up in front of people, but the nervousness faded away, because the nervousness is just like my ego, and to see their faces and their smiles and their joy, and us being there was helping them so greatly that the inspiration just carried me through, and I felt so energized. And even though not sleeping much and just traveling a lot, and it was just so beautiful. And then also, we didn't have a whole lot of new people who came to the programs, maybe just a handful. But those that came, there's especially this one woman, she was so enthusiastic. She even went up to Hriman and said, how can I become a devotee, and how can I take discipleship? I think that's what she said. How can I take discipleship? And she followed us around and was there, and it was so inspiring that, you can touch just one person, as they say, and, that's so well worth it. And so it was really beautiful, and I feel really blessed to have gone. We want to share a song that we sang, the Divine Mother song. We got to sing together. So we're going to sing.
Oh, should we get a note?
You need a note? I've got several.
Ooh, which one do I choose?
I don't know.
Is that good? Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire, love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire, love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee.
So let's have our whispers reading.
Oh, hard to do anything after that. Make us transparent, that thy light may shine through us unimpeded. The sunbeams of thy love shine equally on all members of thy cosmic family, whether prophet, hero, villain, tiny moth, or me. It is our fault if we make ourselves opaque by our own mental and emotional dullness. Teach us to wipe away the dirt of error from the windows of our understanding. Our arms are weak for the task, owing to our long inner spiritual resistance. O Master Cleanser, lend power to our efforts, that we may wipe away every last spot that clings to our minds, obscuring our transparency and preventing free entry to thy light. O, make us fully clean again, invisible in our egos, because transmitting only visions of beauty which lies within us. Oh, amen.